And what Jessica and I are going to be talking about is eating disorder recovery, PCOS, and honestly, if you don't have PCOS, I think that's okay too. This is really about the conversation of how to recover from an eating disorder while also promoting health. And I know there's lots of different conditions out there that people experience where food is the number one recommendation to manipulate um, in order to like promote health. And that's how I ended up really helping people with PCOS. There was so much um, information that I was getting about how people needed to cut out food groups in order to promote health with PCOS. But I was like specializing in helping people recover from eating disorders. So I was like, well, people with PCOS need to be able to like also specialize or also experience recovery. Like you deserve it too. So so that's why I got kind of into the PCOS world. It was like, I feel like a challenge. I need to find it. And there she is. I love that we both did jazz hands at the same time. We're
This is like chaos jazz hands because I'm like, why can't I get this to work? But we're here, so that's good.
I know. Do you get a little notification or something? Like, how did you eventually get?
Nothing. So in the email, when you scheduled it, it says look for, and it shows what it'll look like. It shows it'll like pop up on your screen and say so-and-so is inviting you. So I just had my phone sitting here open and nothing popped up. And I kept going to my notifications and it said you were live, but it wasn't showing me invite. So then I just kept refreshing the notifications and eventually something popped up. So
that's good.
Maybe just a little delayed.
Yeah, maybe you want to do this in the future, you can know what it's like. Okay, so that's a good thing to know is just like keep refreshing your notifications. And and so there were a few times where I had to like send it again. So anyway,
here we are. We've made it. Technology.
I know, right? Thanks for joining me for the first like group chat or like I've done a lot of these solo. So thanks for being the person willing to experiment and try this other way.
Always down to see just what happened.
Exactly. Well, and I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to people who are coming in from my Substack, and then also people who may be just randomly like stumbling upon this video. Welcome. We love the like random stumble upon a video. But one thing I will tell people who are on here is I got to meet you maybe like 2-3 months ago. Maybe is that when it was? It was
when was that? No, it was not. Like April or May, maybe? Maybe a little earlier, sometime in the spring.
Yeah. And so you were someone that helped me like get used to Substack. And I'm trying to remember who actually introduced us, but that's okay. Jen, yes. That's exactly it. And so that's when I got to know your podcast and your eating disorder recovery platform that you have with your podcast. So, and then you asked me to write an essay on PCOS and eating disorders. So that was so nice of you. And so, like today, what I'm thinking about is talking about that kind of intersection of promoting health while living with a chronic condition. And lots of people that are in my world have PCOS, but not everyone. And lots of people who have like insulin resistance or diabetes or another condition, sometimes all of those, and also want to recover from an eating disorder or just like not diet, I think especially, I'm Gen X. And so I'm raising some Gen Z kids and they're all about like dieting. What? That's stupid, And
Love that.
I know, I do too. The world is going to be so much better. So like, what if you have a condition and you're like, I don't want to diet. I know that oppresses whole groups of people. So that's what I hope we can talk about today. So with that all being said, could you introduce yourself so people can be welcomed into your universe too?
Yes. So my name is Jessica Thiefels, and I do a lot of stuff here on Substack as Dope That's Not Normal, which is actually, we don't usually use the term eating disorders or speak to people with clinically diagnosed eating disorders. The reason I started Nope was I felt that there was this gap between like influencers sharing about anti-diet sort of stuff and then eating disorder stuff. And I felt like there's like this massive group of people who feel they have a disordered relationship with food in their body, but they like if someone had told me I had an eating disorder, I would have been like, no, I don't. But like, I know something's not right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I was looking for something. I wanted to create something that's consistently talking about this and sharing insights against like shifting away from diet culture and finding a new relationship with food, redefining your relationship with movement is something we've been talking a lot about lately too.
Okay, good.
Um, and so that's where Nope came from. But my job where I make my money and what I've been doing for the last 15 years is actually marketing, which is how you and I sort of got connected
Mhm.
up.
Mhm.
So I actually just today published my first one of which will be a monthly series called Nope Office Hours. Um, and Christy Harrison is a client of mine for anyone who knows her book Anti Diet.
Mhm.
She does incredible work, rethinking wellness, all that good stuff. Um, she had suggested, what if you brought some of your marketing expertise to your Substack, which is
Yeah.
very specifically not marketing, but I know there's a lot of practitioners and
Uh-huh.
people like you in my community who may be looking for that. And like, that's like
Mhm.
my superpower is creating
Yes.
content and strategy. Um, so I'm working that a little teensy bit in. It's still like 99.9% talking about healing and all that stuff. But
Mhm.
so yeah, I'm a marketer and then I've been through disordered eating healing myself and I don't have PCOS, but a big reason why I think I slipped so deep into a disordered relationship with food in my body was healing chronic. For me, it was chronic digestive pain. I was diagnosed with
Okay.
SIBO. Who
Oh,
knows what?
yeah.
Went down the whole alternative health, naturopathic realm.
Mhm.
I remember working with this naturopath, and probably like a lot of people listening, probably like you or people in your space, um, I felt very frustrated with the Western medical establishment because I mean, I had just seen my doctor, seen specialists, and couldn't figure out what was wrong. And like my body was covered in white spots all over my chest and my
Wow.
arms. And I had constant bloat. And like I would wake up in the middle of the night with these, I call them stomach attacks. Like I couldn't even breathe. I'd have to be on my hands and knees. My husband would put
Wow.
like a hot towel on my back because pain would be radiating through my stomach and my back. And couldn't figure out what was wrong. And so that took me down naturopathic thing. And I remember her saying to me, talking about the SIBO protocol. And it's for anyone who doesn't know, it's incredibly restrictive. You can't eat anything raw. Everything has to be cooked. You can only eat like, you know, 20 foods total. You
Yeah.
can't drink. You can't have all this stuff. And I just had this thought in my head of, this isn't going to be good. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew intuitively that I was going to, or like instinctively, that I was going to lose weight and that was going to feed this desire to be
Mhm.
thinner that I had just been like feeling like was like a normal level of body dissatisfaction all of my 20s. And it sort of spiraled down from there. And I'll stop and give you a second, but something I'd love to share about after is I'm constantly walking this line between supporting my body and also being aware of the disordered eating habits. I'm personally a big proponent of I have worked with functional medicine
Mhm.
practitioners, and
Mhm.
I totally understand that there's a lot of bad actors out there and people not doing
Mhm.
proper work. And there are people, even people I work with, who don't believe in that and who think that it's not right. For me, it's been the right thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It did support the first while, 2 years I did it, very disordered eating habits, but the goal wasn't to be disordered and be thinner. I
Yeah.
just latched on to that as
Right.
being a result.
Right.
And so I love talking about that because I think it's not something talked about a lot. And I think it's really hard. We can feel like we
It
have
is
to be
hard.
very black or white.
Mhm.
And I don't think that we have to choose. I think we can find our own
Yeah.
path and take what works for us while being really like intentional and honest with ourselves about like, why am I choosing this? Is it to be thin or is it genuinely because I feel like it's supporting my body's unique
Yeah.
needs?
You just want your GI tract to be able to absorb food and, like, your bacteria to not be causing those stomach attacks. No, and
Right.
I really appreciate this type of conversation. I think it's really important in the PCOS world, and in particular, like, SIBO or, just GI disorders in general, IBS, like, those are really common in PCOS,
Mhm.
and, a lot of times people are like, "Why does this happen?" And a lot of it comes down to because people with PCOS end up restricting so much that,
Mhm.
it causes a microbiome kind of like insult, and it causes bacterial overgrowth, and, like, the actual restrictions causing that, and especially over time, and most of the people with PCOS that I've worked with individually, they weren't just starting out their restriction right before working with me. They had been 10, 20, 30 years. And
Mhm.
so they had a history of anorexia and bulimia and binge eating. And so, like, all of that restriction, because binge eating and bulimia also include restriction. I don't know if people are like,
Mhm.
really? Yes, they all have
Mhm.
restriction.
Yeah.
But yeah, that really could do things to your GI tract. And I think for me as a dietitian, especially because when I became a dietitian was in the late 90s, and that's when the FDA stopped regulating a lot of supplements. Like, the whole functional medicine conversation was one that my professors told me to be very cautious of because of
Mm.
that, which
Mhm.
made me also probably a bit elitist of like, we have to fix it with food instead of like
Mhm.
having all this functional stuff. And that was not okay for me to do. And as I started helping people with PCOS and saw how impactful just the supplement inositol was,
Mhm.
even like I'm a big proponent of like you need to make sure you're eating enough. And when you're eating enough, that's when supplements can really have the biggest impact. Yet it can take years for people to like be able to get to the point where they're eating enough. And so I'm like, why am I making people wait? Just because I'm like being stubborn about like how I
Right.
don't like the FDA rules. Yeah, there's a bunch of fat positive, weight inclusive, functional medicine, either dietitian
Mhm.
or naturopaths that I've come across. Some have done my PCOS training that I used to offer to providers. And yeah, like I think it's really great. And I think
Yeah.
part of the trap of living in the diet industry and diet culture is like black and white, like
Yeah.
rigid.
All or nothing.
Yes. And so
Mhm.
um, I would invite, yeah, like anyone, if there's like an idea that you come across, even if it's like you Google it and you come across like, oh, I could do this functional medicine thing, like just try to like weigh it and decide for you which one's the best, option. And yeah, and you may find some things are triggering and some things are not. And I also think that's like where finding a weight inclusive, fat positive clinician can really help if,
Mhm.
like, I think about one of my good friends, her name is Beth Rosen, and she does a lot with functional GI, um, I don't know what she calls herself, like a GI dietitian, and so she
Yeah.
specializes in eating disorder recovery and GI disorders, and she talks a lot about some of these, like, SIBO interventions, but, like, she also helps people recover at the same time, like,
Right.
she has like, can hold all of it with you, and that's what I would say too, like, having someone to help you. Yeah, I'll stop, but I don't
Yeah.
know if you have any reaction to that or what you think.
Well, yeah, I think so. Another person that I know in the space, actually, another client of mine, her name is Meg Bowman, and she runs
Mhm.
Nutrition Hive, which is foundationally like root cause functional nutrition practice, but they run it with a very trauma informed disordered eating lens. So we like talk a lot
Mhm.
about that on their social because a lot of people in the functional don't talk about
Yeah.
that. And like she and I had a conversation about managing this idea of restrictive eating when functional nutrition and how can you take care of your body and not fall in that trap. And I was saying, at the time when I was working with the naturopath, like I didn't know necessarily that I have like disordered eating, which is what I
Yeah.
would say I've
Yeah.
struggled with. I honestly just thought it was normal. Hence, nope, that's not normal. Is
Yeah.
literally like the
That's the
inspiration
name of her
for why
podcast, in case you missed
that's
that.
the name of my podcast and
Yeah.
Substack. Yeah. And this conversation I'm talking about, y'all, I think is in is it season 1 or season 2 of the podcast? If you go, you'll find it. Her name is Meg Bowman. Anyway, she was saying it's really helpful working with a practitioner who understands that because she was like, I, as a practitioner, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions you don't think are important. And that's going to
Yes.
help me understand, even if you don't know that you have disordered eating or restrictive habits or whatever, I'm going to pick up on that. And then I'm going to know, even if you don't know, to watch out for the triggers. And if you're
Mhm.
talking about weight loss, or if
Yeah.
you do know, telling your practitioner, I've struggled with disordered eating. I want to do what's right for my body, but I want to do it really intentionally. Like
Yeah.
uh, Meg talks a lot about like FODMAP light.
Mhm.
And rather than like throwing everything out.
Yes.
It's like just taking one thing out or
Yeah.
doing it really
It's like
gently.
onions and garlic, like a few random things that are not gonna probably be a deal breaker for most people, although, like, there's certainly a lot of foods that are gonna not taste that great without them, but, like, yeah, I've
But you
heard of
can
the
still
flat
pretty much eat everything. It's like you're
Yeah.
not, like, throwing bread out the window and
Yes.
you're not doing everything, which is, like, that is, I think, is
Yeah.
what leads to, like, that restricted right? For
Mhm.
me, I had to restrict to heal my body for so long
Yeah.
that, like, it just became normal and
Yeah.
then, like, that stacked on top of, like, all the praise that I got for being so thin and all the people saying, "Oh my
Mhm.
god," and I was also a personal trainer in my 20s, and so there
Oh,
was
I
this
didn't know
whole
that. Oh, yeah.
oh, yeah. So there's this whole fitness element, and I was the girl who would go out with her friends and then be up at 7 a.m. doing a 10K, like, and I was, like, very proud to be that
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
and it all, like, fed into, um, you know, it was like a perfect storm for when these healing modalities were introduced to me, but I will say genuinely and truly, I don't regret it at all. I never until I found the functional nutrition people I work with, nothing fixed the problems. Nothing fixed the
Mhm.
bloat, the pain, the spots. I had all of these other weird things. And I mean, I'd worked with a lot of people. So I don't regret that I had to do that and that it took me
Yeah.
down that path. I'm just grateful that I mean, I was always feeding myself. I was just like clean eating deeply. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Right.
very intensely. I just wasn't living as joyful of a life as I could be. I was
Yeah.
never like restricting like an eating disorder where I was never throwing up
Mhm.
or not eating and not giving myself nutrition.
Mhm.
I was just very tight
Well, and I
in
think
what I
that's important to point out because I remember when I was seeing clients how so many people would in the beginning like not identify of having an eating disorder because of those reasons. Like, well, I'm still eating. And I'm like, listen, like everybody's eating. Like there's
right.
like very few people who are actually not eating. And it's usually because they're experiencing like famine or genocide or something like that. It's not because of an eating disorder. And that assumption that like, it's 100% starvation to be an eating disorder. I think that keeps so many people from getting the help
Right.
they need. Yeah, because then they'll
Mhm.
normalize it. Because certainly be like, "Well, I'm just eating clean," or "I'm just, like, cutting out, carbohydrates," like, if you have PCOS or something, to be
Right.
like, "Well, that's okay, that's normal," or that you may even be praised for it, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just always encourage whenever I'm talking about this to just like go back to your intention for why you're doing what you're doing. And also thinking about like, is this causing anxiety? Am I missing out on things in life
Yes.
because of
Yes.
this? Like, it got to the point where, like, when I started working with the eating disorder therapist I worked with, like, I genuinely didn't think I could ever get off what it felt like I was on a hamster wheel, and I felt like
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
not stop. I was so obsessed with how my body looked, and I was so obsessed with the food I was eating, and it
Mhm.
wasn't until I did the healing work and I stopped doing that I realized, like, how much I was missing out on in life. So it's
Mhm.
like it's sometimes it can be really hard to see, especially because, like we're saying, like you are often praised for it. Our
Mhm.
modern culture, even just outside of diet culture, because diet culture is so much a part of modern culture, like great, praises you for that. Like
Mhm.
you're this great morally, um, you know, whatever person for taking care of your health, and so it can be
Right.
hard to separate the two. But it's like if you're genuinely feeling good and you feel like you're really feeding yourself well and you're not having anxiety and you're living life and you're
Yeah.
maybe that's not a problem. It's okay to want to eat quote unquote healthy, but it's
Yeah.
when you're not feeding yourself, you are working out to the point of like injury and extreme fatigue and you're
Mhm.
not going and doing the fun things with your friends because you shouldn't eat the thing at
Yeah.
the restaurant. Like those are all signs that there's something not right here.
Exactly. Yeah, when health is only like the deal breakers for am I healthy or not is like a food choice, then I think it's not having a big enough view. Yeah,
Right.
because health is so much more than that. And also, I mean, as a dietitian, I know it sounds really funny, but like nutrition is not like that impressive. Like it doesn't have that much power to fix everything. And again, I mean, I spent what, 6 years studying this and then the last 25 years being a dietitian, so, like, I'm pretty invested in nutrition, but I also think it's not as sexy, it's not as breaking, and there's certainly things that, like, with the functional medicine stuff, like, that can make a big difference, and at the same time like how much you move your body or fruits or vegetables you eat or your body size. Like, I think those three in particular have so much power that they don't deserve. And
Oh boy.
so if you like thinking about like what we've noticed, and I don't know, I'm thinking about like moving our conversation into like if someone's in that spiral,
Mm,
um, what are some steps out? Like,
mm.
is there anything that you would say are like some first steps to get out of the spiral?
Yeah, well, something I'm thinking of that was a really big aha moment for me that I think is helpful for like zooming out of all that is there's something called, I literally didn't know this existed until like a year ago. It's called the social determinants of health.
Yes.
And it tells us that like food and fitness or food and movement are two very, very small pieces of this really large pie, like economic status,
Mhm.
your friendships, your work, like the the literal environment that you live in, like all of these things are impacting your health. And for me, when I realized that, it like really broadened my lens a lot in a way that helped me
Mhm.
see like I've been taught to put so much emphasis on these things to be quote unquote healthy. But
Yeah.
when I realized that there's like so much more to being healthy than that. And also like body size has nothing to do with health. I think like
Mhm.
maybe I knew that, but like I didn't really like consciously believe it.
Yeah.
And
It takes a while
um
to let that sink.
there's a really good book I want to add for people to read that would also be a good first step to start exploring the fact that like all this emphasis is a lie.
Mhm.
It's called, I believe it's called The Body of Truth. I'm gonna Google it right now just to be sure.
With the body trust?
No, no,
Huh?
it's
I don't know Body of Truth then. Let me Google myself.
yeah, it is. It's Body of Truth by Harriet Brown. So how
Oh, yes,
science,
I know
history,
Harry
and
Brown.
culture
Yes,
drive our
her work is
obsession with weight.
great. Yes.
It's a really, really, really good book. And she does such an incredible job of
Mhm.
helping you see how all of this research, like how a little bit of research has been blown up to paint this picture that's actually not true. And then she provides you with all of this other research that's sort of is counterproductive or like runs counter to the research that we've been told is true. Like, for
Yeah.
example, about body size and its connection to morbidity and death. And actually, like, there's like a U or something. Anyway, check it out. It's a very, very good way to just start again. I think just opening your brain a little bit to the
Yeah.
idea that that's not true what you've been told. And
Mhm.
it's like a very gentle, just sort of like, start dabbling. And then listen to Nope, That's Not Normal
Yeah,
and subscribe.
exactly. Yeah,
Because
exactly.
we're talking about this stuff all the time.
I have a, Harriet Brown story for you. So, gosh, this is probably almost 10 years ago now. Yes, I think it was. Maybe it may have been 2017, so maybe not quite 10 years ago. But I was at a conference and I was at the airport flying home. And when you sit at those places where you can, at the airport, where you can like plug your phone in and they're kind of like
Mm.
a little counter. And so I went over there to plug my phone in and I look over and there's Harriet Brown. And I was like, "Are you Harriet Brown?" And she's like, "Yes, I am." And I think that's when Body of Truth, I completely forgot about this book. I think that's like it had just come out or it was newer at that time. And I had never met her. And I think like she wasn't on social media in the way that like I think a lot of us are just used to. Um, but she was so great to talk to in person. I had like the
Mhm.
most fabulous conversation. She was so generous with just like things she was sharing with me. And but the thing that about her book, and I find this for a lot of people who are trained in this way, like she's a journalist. She's a
Mm.
professor in the communications department at Syracuse, and like so like anti diet and rethinking wellness with Christy Harrison, like journalists are just such great writers. And
Yeah.
so those books are just, and as someone who's written a book, like it's such a hard task, but like looking at how they do it, it's really great. Those are really great books. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I love when you meet someone and they're actually like, you actually have a good experience instead of,
Yeah.
I should never have introduced myself.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I actually like have not even necessarily finished the whole book, but it was one of those things that I was like halfway through and like, it's just like I got so immediately was just so much value. And the last thing I'll mention about something you can do and for some this is possible, for some it's not, for some it's too scary, but is genuinely is working with a mental health professional in whatever way is possible for you. And I
Mhm.
say that because so much of disordered eating and body image, it's none of it's about your body, right? It's
Yeah.
all often underlying things, pain, trauma. You've developed these coping skills and these coping mechanisms, and working with a mental health specialist specifically who works in this area, that's when I really like found real healing, because
Mhm.
I've seen therapists my whole life. I'm a huge proponent, but when I started working with someone 3 years ago in this space, she was really able to ask me the questions for us to get underneath the food story, underneath the body
Good.
story,
Yeah.
and realize like all the lingering stuff under there that allowed like there's just so much underneath all of it that you would never know unless you're guided to go there. And it
Mhm.
can be difficult depending on what's
It's
there.
very difficult. It's hard work. I had a
But worth
Yeah, like, I had a supervisor, in my clinical training who would always say, like, "It's hard work and it's good work." So, you
Mhm.
know, and
Totally.
it's
Yeah.
very, very hard, but it's very fruitful.
Mhm.
I just personally started going back to therapy probably, like, 2 months ago, and I was like, "Dang, it still is there, the hard work but good work shit," and it's like, you get worse before you
Oh,
get
yeah.
better, all of
Oh, yeah.
that, but,
Yeah.
it's I'm ready to do the work, so let's get to it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, I've read before that on average it takes 6 different therapists to get to the right one for you.
Mhm.
So, if you've been to someone before and you're like, "That was crap." Yes, it probably
Mhm.
was crap. I hope you
Yeah.
can give it
Keep
a chance
going.
again. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would say too, like, there's all these different ways to access therapy now, which have been
Yes.
really great with, like, insurance, but also, and we're seeing this also in dietetics too, like, these big, like, tech companies buying group practices, and so they have these efficient systems, so then you can file insurance and it's cheaper, but the way that these clinicians are often treated and how many clients they see, it ends up making
Mhm.
the experience for some of those providers, like, they just can't provide quality, psych
Yeah.
so yeah, it sucks because, like, having accessible therapy is so hard, like you
So
mentioned.
necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would
Mhm.
say, like, ask around. You can shoot me an email, like, that's the thing, like, eating disorder providers in particular, we know each other,
Yeah.
and especially eating disorder dietitians. Like, we really
Mhm.
know each other. So, if you are looking for a clinician, no matter where you are in the world, I 80% of the time probably can find a couple people to recommend to you. So, if you're watching and you're like, "I
Yeah.
really want someone and I live in South Dakota, who could I see?" I'm like, "Shoot me an email. I will help you find somebody." Um,
Seriously.
yeah.
I work, one of my clients is Project Heal.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we just did a blog post, 15 directories to find inclusive therapists for your healing
Love
journey.
it. I'll have to put that on.
All researched by myself and my team. But I should send that to you, and
I would
you
love
could, if there's
that.
comments or notes for this, because there's tons of now directories where you can put in specific needs, and you can find also like very culturally affirming, gender
Yeah,
affirming
yeah.
people who not only understand, let's say, eating disorders or disordered eating, but maybe also understand chronic illness and
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
whatever, your cultural people that come from certain cultures are also experiencing disordered eating
Yeah,
for different reasons, and so
right.
finding someone who gets that is so key.
Yeah.
Um, so I can somehow share that with
Yeah,
everybody here, or if you just go to the Project Heal website,
yeah,
theprojectheal.org, it's there on the blog.
yeah. Well, one thing I do whenever I do a live video is I always send the recap, and so I'll
Oh, good.
if you can send me the link, I will definitely put it
Well,
in there. And 2 things I wanna say is if you are looking for a PCOS provider, I did have a number of years where I was doing PCOS training for clinicians, and so I have a list of PCOS, providers who are either therapists, dietitians. I have, a couple of functional medicine folks too, um, who went through the training. So if you're looking for someone to help you with your PCOS, I have, a list to give you. And so I'll put that in the recap too.
great.
And mentioning Project Heal reminds me, like, because that's something that you and I kind of like now have in common too, because I'm in like I
Oh,
was
yeah.
when I was writing the essay for you on PCOS, I was also writing one for Project Heal. And
Mhm.
so Project Heal is actually giving away a copy of the Find Your Food Voice book um, this week, I think.
Just
So,
posted it today on Instagram, literally like 5
yay!
minutes before this. Yeah.
So go to Instagram and also LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn.
Yes, because
Oh,
I'm not on Instagram. I mean, it's a long story. I'm on LinkedIn, but you can get a free copy of the Find Your Food Voice book by following the directions on how to do that. And I love entering giveaways because my motto is always like, someone has to win. It might as well be
yeah,
me. So
might as well.
it might
Yeah.
as well, like, right?
Yeah.
So we'll put a link to that in there too. And I think is it just like the next few days, right? To enter in.
Tomorrow at noon, I think. And we posted
Yes.
it at noon. It's like
Yeah.
24 hours.
Yes. So enter. You need to win. Um, do we need anything else before we wrap up? It was so nice to talk to you.
I know. I don't think so. Just like if you're feeling that body anxiety, that food anxiety, you're struggling, like
Mhm.
please know that you are like so far from alone. I don't
Yeah.
think I realized how lonely I felt until I listened to actually a podcast with Christy with Marcy Evans. And
Oh yes, love Marcy.
he was talking about the connection between either digestive issues or just like chronic health issues and disordered eating. And it was like the first time anything clicked in my brain of like, oh, that's what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I just cried. Like I was by myself in the car driving somewhere just crying because I was like, I just finally started to have a language to understand what I was feeling. And I didn't realize how lonely I was in feeling that until I heard that. And I was like, oh my God. So
Mhm.
like that's a lot of what I do, why I do what I do on Nope is because I want people to realize A, you're not alone. There's so many people feeling this. And B, there is another way and we can choose another way. And yes, it takes time and yes, it takes unlearning, but we can with the right support and ideas and content and all that stuff. So
Yes. Yeah,
yes.
there's one thing that I wrote about in my book where I said like the diet industry uses hope as a weapon and
Mm,
it wants you to conform to isolate. Because if
yeah,
you're isolated and you feel like, if I just stay isolated, could have the life I want and be accepted. But
right.
like it really is, if anything, it's just removing you from community, recovery, pleasure, joy, all these things, right? And then feeling good in
Hmm.
your body as well. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so great. I really have loved the messages and, like, the essays that you've had on body image lately, those have been really great.
Mhm.
Some of the things that you've been writing, I'm like, "Oh, yes, I can totally relate to this. This is" yes. And it's a hard time right now. It's a hard time to have a
No.
body, and so I love the
Yeah.
work you're doing, and I'm excited for the marketing content that you're talking about. That's gonna be great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um
first one's out today, so it's full, it's so meaty. I showed my husband, I was
Oh,
like,
I
"Look
love
at
a
this."
media essay. That's
It's
why I
like,
love
"Oh
it.
my god, that's so much stuff." It's very practical and tactical, that's the thing. It's like, I want you to be able to, like, learn it and implement it. So if anyone wants marketing support, go check that out 'cause yeah.
Awesome. I will put that link in the summary email, whatever I call it, the
Cool.
recap email. Uh, yes. So I hope you can give Jessica a follow and yeah, let's stay connected. And thank you for joining me and like this experimental like group Substack live. So thank you.
Just anything experimental, you let me know. I'm down. I'm
I
down to
love
try.
it. I love it. Well, have a great rest of your day and thank you all for joining and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.